Today is January 23rd, 1984. Several significant events have always taken place on January 23rd. For example, the Royal Exchange opened up in London, England all the way back in 1571. The 24th Amendment to the United States Constitution was ratified. And exactly 20 years removed from that, Hulk Hogan wins the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. Welcome to Tyler Vance Rants. I'm your host, Tyler Vance, and this is a special ringside look at a card hosted and organized by the WWF on this day back in 1984. These huge cards were often the norm back in the day. I mean, you have to consider pay-per-view just didn't exist, and streaming? Forget about it. Since promoters were so limited in how they could get their product out there to people, they would often spend weeks, if not months, building up to these major events hosted in huge venues. For example, in this case, we are in Madison Square Garden, probably New York City's most famous, if not the world's most famous arena. Unless you were there ringside, front row center where I would be, you would have to go to a movie theater or a special venue that would be playing on closed circuit the event, and you would have to pay a ticket and watch away. With the stupid history lesson out of the way, let's get right into the night's action. Gorilla Monsoon and Pat Patterson will be calling the action tonight, both experienced wrestlers in their own right, and both retired at this point of their careers. Pat Patterson himself was the first ever WWF Intercontinental Champion, a championship which will be defended later on tonight. The first match of the night pits Jose Luis Rivera against Tony Garea, and instead of our regular ring announcer, Joe McHugh, we are instead treated to Howard Finkel's introductions. Rivera and Garea demonstrate pretty good sportsmanship at the beginning of the match, shaking each other's hands. Then they get into a feeling out process, which delves into a pretty exciting chain wrestling event demonstrated by the pair. Rivera almost scores a win over Garea with a crossbody, but Garea fights back. His problem though, he spends way too much time holding Rivera in a shoulder lock. Because Garea spends so much of the match just holding Rivera in a shoulder lock, he becomes predictable, and he quickly loses control of the match. He almost falls again to Rivera after a roll-up. Shortly after this, Rivera comes off the top rope with another crossbody, however, Garea scores a cheap win following a rollover. Rivera deserved the win here. He was definitely the better wrestler by all accounts. Next up is tag team action, pitting Mr. Fuji and Tiger Chung Lee against the Invaders, who the crowd seemed to be solidly behind. Tiger Chung Lee continues to demonstrate good sportsmanship tonight, just like the last match, and he does this by bowing to the Invaders. But this causes the crowd to boo him for some reason.
Oh, wow, look at the smile he gives you. You can't trust that smile.
Double standards much? The Invaders demonstrate an amazing level of teamwork here, which almost leads to Tiger Chung Lee falling to one of them. As the match gets going with Mr. Fuji now in the ring, it gets genuinely entertaining and fast-paced, and the experience and teamwork of the Invaders proves to often be too much for their opponents. Things slow down midway through the match, and Mr. Fuji and Tiger Chung Lee then take turns punishing on both the Invaders. This leads to another near fall following a sunset flip by Tiger Chung Lee on Invader number 2. The match comes to an abrupt end as the 20-minute time limit is suddenly called. And you know what? I hate time limits. I was genuinely invested in this match and I really wanted to see who would come out on top. It's a shame, really. The Masked Superstar and Chief J Strongbow go head-to-head in the next match, and this match demonstrates just how much of a bully Chief J Strongbow really is. Right away, Chief J Strongbow starts smack-talking against the Masked Superstar. That's fine. For those that know me, I'm not the Masked Superstar's biggest fan. I think his name is ridiculous. However, what the Chief is about to do is completely disrespectful. While Chief Strongbow employs his favorite move, the headlock, against the Masked Superstar, Gorilla Monsoon and Pat Patterson discuss just how important the Masked Superstar's mask is to him. This is important, so pay attention. No one has ever actually seen the Masked Superstar's face. He takes great strides in protecting his identity, going so far, as mentioned by the commentary team, that when he's in the showers after a match, he has a special mask that he puts on to conceal his identity. The man must have his reasons, and that's completely fine. With all of this in mind, and knowing that since it is common knowledge, Chief J Strongbow would also be aware that this mask is very important to the Masked Superstar. So, Taking a page out of Jimmy Valiant's playbook, the Chief does what any self-respecting hero would do. He immediately goes after the most important thing to the masked superstar, his mask. Not only does he try to rip it off once, but twice. Even the commentators say that Chief Jay Strongbow's actions here are going a little bit too far.
He doesn't like that at all.
Well, in a way, you can't blame him because his mask should not have anything to do.
It's not part of the match.
No.
The masked superstar gets so upset about this that he hits Chief Jay Strongbow with a huge, massive clothesline and gets the win. And you know what? I have to say that the Chief got what he deserves. Play with fire, you're gonna get burnt. Chief Jay Strongbow walks around dazed after the match with just how hard he was hit by that clothesline. And that's what you get when you make things personal, bud. The Polish power, Ivan Putski, is up next, and his objective? Survive Sergeant Slaughter.
What a master sergeant he must have been.
I'm going to stop you right there, Gorilla. According to the rank insignia on Sergeant Slaughter's uniform, he was a staff sergeant. It's not that hard. Do your research. When the match begins, Sergeant Slaughter takes his time getting into it. Putski doesn't have any issues demonstrating just how much of a physical specimen he is, demonstrating his strength by literally throwing Sergeant Slaughter all around. One of these throws saw the Marine Corps veteran actually smash his head off the ring post, and it caused him to start to bleed. Shortly after this, Putski hits his finisher on Sergeant Slaughter, the Polish Hammer, which sends Slaughter flying out of the ring. Dual brawl even as the bell rings and after it. It takes a while, but the referee eventually does do his job and separates Putski and Sergeant Slaughter long enough to award the Marine a victory via countout. You see, when Putski hit his Polish power on Sergeant Slaughter and knocked him out of the ring, he followed him out and began to brawl with him on the outside. He lost track of time, whereas the Sergeant did it, and he managed to slide right back into the ring with just a second to spare. Maybe if you spent more time studying rather than pumping iron, you'd know how to count to 10, Putski. After this, we head backstage with Gene Okerlund, who's about to interview
Mr. Wonderful Orndorff.
Paul Orndorff promises that he's going to put his upcoming opponent Salvatore Bellomo into his pile driver before he goes full blast at Gene Okerlund.
You know something? You don't like me and I don't like you, and we know that. That's what's good about it.
Heading out to the ring, accompanied by his manager, Paul Orndorff manages to get a sneak attack on Salvatore Bellomo, who is an idiot and turns his back to his opponent. From there, Mr. Wonderful absolutely mauls Salvatore, getting almost a near fall following a huge back body drop. After kicking out, Bellomo manages to get in a little bit of offense, but the real kicker here is that Orndorff runs into the steel ring post and hurts his shoulder, giving Bellomo an opportunity to take advantage. The thing about Paul Orndorff, though, despite the fact that he is in a weakened state, he's the full package. Bellomo's tossed outside of the ring, and Roddy Piper immediately gets into his face. This distracts him just long enough so that Mr. Wonderful can come up behind Bellomo and slam him hard down on the concrete floor. We didn't even have mats back then, that's how old this stuff is. With the match back in the ring, Bellomo gets one final chance to try and win this match over Mr. Wonderful, when Paul Orndorff misses a knee drop from the top rope. However, Bellomo never fully capitalizes on this. Orndorff manages to fight his way back and catches Bellomo with a power slam. Living up to his earlier promise, he then puts Bellomo into his pile driver finisher for the 1-2-3. The WWF Intercontinental Championship match takes place next between challenger Tito Santana and the champion, Magnificent Muraco. There isn't much to this match, other than that it did end in a double disqualification. Apparently the referee felt that his authority was being questioned just a little bit too much when both the challenger and the champion weren't following instructions. Let them wrestle, you coward. Backstage again, Gene Okerlund is interviewing Ayatollah Blassie and the current WWF World Heavyweight Champion, the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik was set to defend his World Heavyweight Championship against Bob Backlund, the man that he won the title from back in December. However, in lieu of this, Hulk Hogan will instead be challenging for the title. Why this is, nobody ever really says. This has the Ayatollah outraged, and you know what? I'm with him. What do you mean cards are subject to change? Not to worry. The Iron Sheik, he's a fighting champion, and despite being challenged by Gene Okerlund to speak English...
Wait a minute, I know you speak English, Sheik. Please.
Okay.
He does say that he's beaten them all before, and he's going to continue to do so again tonight with Hulk Hogan.
Fred Blassie, I am sorry, gentlemen. I apologize.
Yeah, that's right. You get us
we are out of
interview,
time.
And then you cut us right
We
off.
are out of time.
You cut the world
Let's go to the
champion
ring.
To make matters worse, Okerlund cuts off the Iron Sheik and cuts the interview short, which further outrages Ayatollah Blassie. Who do you think you are, Okerlund? This is the World Heavyweight Champion. You can't treat him this way. The WWF World Heavyweight Championship match is up next. However, it's not the main event of the evening. I don't know, the 80s were weird. Hogan heads down to the ring in his traditional red and yellow, and it makes me wonder why McDonald's never capitalized on this potential ad revenue. It's a major missed opportunity if you ask this professional. Here we start to see a change in Hulk Hogan's demeanor. You see, for the past 3 weeks, he's been honorable and a good sport. But not tonight. Instead, he not only attacks the champion before he's ready and gets in some cheap offense, but then he follows it up by literally spitting on his opponent.
Incredible.
304 pounds of
Whoa! He is actually spitting on the Sheik.
After Hulk Hogan misses an elbow in the corner, the WWF World Heavyweight Champion takes advantage of this mistake and takes the Hulkster to the cleaners. The crowd is going absolutely insane and doing everything they can to keep Hulk Hogan in this match.
down in our kidney area, and the noise is deafening here in Madison Square Garden.
It really does look bleak for Hulk Hogan. He falls to a Boston Crab, followed by a gut-wrench suplex, and then, to top it all off, the Iron Sheik's finisher, the Camel Clutch.
Hands up with a Sheik and rams him into the top turnbuckle.
That's unbelievable. No one has ever been able to break the Camel Clutch. I mean, no one except for Hogan here, who manages to drop his leg on the champion after he broke out.
Hulk Hogan, he dropped the big leg on him. He's down for the cover of the leg. 1, 2. He got him.
Hulk Hogan is the new World Heavyweight Champion. Yeah, I hope they reinforce the structural integrity of Madison Square Garden, because the crowd practically blows the roof off the place with how ecstatic they are. One man who isn't happy about this, besides myself, is the now former WWF World Heavyweight Champion, the Iron Sheik, who attacks Hogan and tries to get in some cheap offense, but only gets tossed out of the ring for his troubles. Gene Okerlund catches up with the new WWF World Heavyweight Champion backstage, and the Hulkster is so emotional he can't help but shed a tear. Hogan is so psyched that he is the top dog in the WWF now that he continues his streak of spitting on people by lobbing a huge gob right onto Mean Gene. Other folks that are ecstatic that this has happened are Andre the Giant, Ivan Putski, and Rocky Johnson, who all come into the locker room to celebrate Hogan's win by pouring champagne all over him. Okay, I think we need to settle down before our hearts explode here. Rene, Goulet, and Jimmy Superfly Snuka are up next in a match which sees Goulet control most of it. I'll give credit where credit's due, and Snuka demonstrates some good athletic ability here near the end of the match, which does lead to him getting a crossbody win over the Frenchman. Checking in with the new WWF World Heavyweight Champion one last time, Gene Okerlund now has Hulk Hogan along with his parents.
You know something, Mean Gene? Pete and Ruth are the people that trained me from the day I could toddle, man.
If Hulk was my son and he called me by my first name, let's just say that he would not be champion for much longer. But Hogan's parents, they're proud of their son, despite his disrespectful behavior all night. Hulkamania is running wild. The final match of the night is a 6-man tag team match, which sees all of the Wild Samoans, Afa, Sika, Samula, take on the WWF World Tag Team Champions Rocky Johnson, who just covered everybody in champagne, Tony Atlas, and Andre the Giant, the biggest drinker of them all. Samula starts the match off for his team against Tony Atlas, but mostly just makes a fool of himself. He just simply is not on the level of the World Tag Team Champions yet, and it leads to him losing the effort for his team after Andre sits on him for the 1, 2, 3. So there we have it. A night full of drama and excitement at the self-proclaimed world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden. I've spent a lot of time doubting Hulk Hogan's ability to rise through the ranks, and I am genuinely shocked. I'm shocked at how fast he managed to get to the top of the food chain in the WWF. 3 weeks! It took 3 weeks for him to come back to the WWF and then become the WWF World Heavyweight Champion. That doesn't just happen to anyone. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If this could happen in 3 weeks, what will happen in another 3 weeks? Well, the only way to find out is to tune in to more Tyler Vance Rants. Thanks for tuning into this ringside review of the WWF at Madison Square Garden. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and let me know what you thought down in the comments. Are you as upset about Hulk Hogan beating the Iron Sheik as I am? Or are you a Hulkamaniac? So long for now. Tiger Chung Lee continues the example tonight of good sportsmanship by he, yeah, that's exactly what happens, by he. Right away, I almost said Chief Wahoo McDaniel, oops. Thanks for tuning in to this ringside review of the WWF, I don't know why I did that. Ivan Putski is up next, and his objective,